Sinister seduction. A recent video is glad when her son finds a new friend, but it soon becomes clear that he is after a different type of companionship, and the story takes a very dark path. We open up in a dark jungle road where a man is running, more like jogging, and another guy appears in front of him and stabs him. Then we roll in a beach where a little boy is playing and somebody is filming him. Then cut to the real picture where a blonde mom just woke up. She checks the family picture and we see her husband picture on a book cover. Apparently he was a writer, also he was the man who got killed at the beginning. She wakes up Anthony, her son, to get ready for school. Then we see a handsome detective got Sharon some donuts and talks about Sharon's husband case he is working on, and they talk about a suspicious email or something. At the school, Anthony gets stuck by her bully and a guy named Dylan stands up for Anthony. Cut to Sharon. She's checking an email from her husband to somebody. This email stuff gets way complicated. Just wait for it. Back to school, Dylan introduces Megan to Anthony and Anthony wants to try some football, American football, and he doesn't know what he's doing. His bully gets punished because of him, which later on he finds his stuff inside the toilet. He asks Dylan why he is so nice to him, and Dylan says because they both have no fathers. He adds that his father committed suicide, and Anthony is like, how come he knows everything about him? But instead he asks, what is Megan's number? Sharon comes back home and can't find Anthony. Then he and Dylan show up, and Sharon is happy for her son finally got himself a friend, and he asks his mother if he can have some friends over. His mother delightfully agrees. At night, friends come over and Dylan is hitting on Sharon, then looking for a bathroom, but he goes through Sharon's stuff and Sharon caught him, but he starts talking about his miserable life without a father. At the end, Sharon asks his son why his backpack was in the washing machine, but he doesn't talk about his bully, and asks his mother why Dylan hangs out with him, but his mother doesn't know and says he seems mature and neat. Next day, Dylan teaches Anthony football and talks about how no one understands him, even Anthony's mother. He adds, losing a husband is not as same as losing a father. Then we see him at Sharon's place, second place. She wants to sell it, and by the way, she is a real estate agent. Dylan wants to see the house for his uncle, and Sharon says she is sorry about his dad and his mother, who passed away after his father's death. Then they talk about the stuff and they almost bond together. Next day we see them again practicing. Anthony knocks his bully down. Then he runs straight to Anthony's locker. Coward. But Anthony has changed the lock, and Dylan also caught him and threatens him, but the other guy talks about Dylan's failure in the past, which triggers his feeling. We cut to Sharon where she's walking around with a light clothes and gets surprised by Dylan. Sneaky, huh? And instead Sharon excuses herself and Dylan is like, you have nothing to worry about, it's our house, don't worry. And Sharon thanks him for being with Anthony and he hugs her. Then he and Anthony go out for school. Then we see that suspicious printed email. Somebody is sending her old emails, the time when her husband were alive and she has had an affair with somebody, and now the whole history is coming back printed. She goes to her secretary and she says she should let Teddy, our detective, know about this, and says maybe her affair has killed her husband. But Sharon says she can't because Teddy is in love with her since high school. At the school, Dylan hooks Anthony and Megan together, and Sharon is trying to figure out who is this guy sending those emails when Anthony jumps in and says he asked Megan on a date, and she is happy for her son but worried about her stalker. Anthony is getting ready to go out with Megan. Her mother admires him how handsome he is as Megan arrives with Dylan. They take Dylan's car and Dylan stays in Anthony's house until they come back. Then we see Anthony having dinner with his date, Dylan and his mother talking about the stuff at home. Sharon gets herself a glass of wine and Dylan wants some of that, but Sharon doesn't let him have it. Not a cool mom after all. And she nags about her dead husband, and Dylan says she has to get rid of all the memories about her husband. First step is to tear up his books. Anthony and Megan are getting back before they kiss, but Anthony gives up halfway through the process. He says we should slow it down. Slow it down? I will never understand this kind of part about movies. Back at home, his mom is taking a shower and Dylan makes a move on her and gets into the shower as well as Anthony arrives home. But Anthony is late, the job is done, and Dylan asks him about his date and Anthony is happy about it and thanks Dylan for helping her about Megan. Then we see Dylan entering into a desperate kind of house. There is his drunk uncle half dead on the bed, and we find out that Dylan is the one who sends those emails. Next morning, Sharon wakes up with lots of book pages all over the place, and Dylan comes and takes Anthony to his school. Then Detective Teddy talks about his progress about the case. Then we see a family who wants to see the house that Sharon wants to sell, and she gets roasted by them because of those emails. At the school, Dylan gets stalked by Anthony's bully. He says he will expose Dylan. Apparently, he knows something about Dylan that he is not supposed to. Then Dylan asks Anthony if he is willing to lie for him at any cost. At first he's reluctant, but can't reject it because of his friendship and all those favors that he got from Dylan. Then we see Dylan charge on to that guy who threatened him earlier and punches him down, then shows the cut on his arm and says that is him who caught Dylan. Okay. And Sharon gets a call and rushes to a school where Anthony and Dylan are getting questioned. The school principal wants to know about the knife, but they say they don't know it. And Dylan says it was the same knife that he has been threatening Anthony with all year. And Anthony lies again and confirms it. Sam says when you lie, then you have to protect it by more lies. Anthony is mad and argues with her mother and says he doesn't care about his father and why she has torn up his dad's books, and his mother says she hated the way it makes her feel about herself, and Anthony says he knows about her affair, and Sharon panics thinking about having an affair with Dylan, but Anthony says her real estate boyfriend. Later on, Dylan texts her to have another tour about the house. At night, we see Dylan at her second house door, and Sharon joins him and they make out as someone is filming, and they get into the house. In the morning, Anthony wakes up and can't find his mom. Then we see his mom wakes up as Dylan is sleeping beside her, and the doorbell rings. It's her secretary, and Sharon panics and says she slept here last night. And as she is waiting for her secretary to find out about Dylan, she notices that Dylan is gone and she gets relieved. But Katie finds a sock and she thinks it's Teddy's sock. At the school, Megan shows the video that she filmed it on last night, and she says Dylan wanted to meet up with her last night in that place, but she encountered that scene, and says he has pulled Dylan's file and he is way older than he acts to be, and even his name is not Dylan. He is lying about everything. And later on, Dylan takes the video from Megan and puts it online, and Sharon is trying to take it down, but it is spread out everywhere. And Teddy comes by her door and says he's out of her husband's case because she's not honest about the emails she has been receiving during this whole time, and Sharon thinks that Teddy knows about the video and confesses that she slept with Dylan, but Teddy doesn't know yet. He left disgusted at her. Anthony gets a text from Megan and she asks him to come over and talk to Dylan, who can explain everything. He rides his bike over to Dylan's dilapidated house and gets knocked out and held captive. Then Sharon gets a text, apparently from Megan, saying if Anthony can stay tonight, and Sharon wants to talk with her, but the text says he doesn't want to. Then she falls asleep after trying to contact Anthony for so many times, and wakes up by a message from the person who used to send those emails saying he wants to see Sharon, and Sharon goes to see him before contacting Teddy, the detective. She goes to her second house, where we see the footage that we saw at the beginning of the movie playing on TV. Then Dylan comes out of a dark corner and pulls out a knife, and Sharon asks if it is the knife he killed her husband with. He says also it is the knife that his father sliced his wrist with in the bathroom because of Sharon. Apparently his father was in love with Sharon, and after his suicide his mother died as well, and he feels like it's all Sharon's fault. He forces Sharon to kill herself, but Sharon stabs him instead by saying she is tired of men telling her what to do, and runs out and bumps into the detective, but Dylan is gone and Sharon knows his house. Then we see Anthony and Megan tied up to a tree, and Sharon busts in Dylan's house, but he's not there except his drunk uncle. Anthony is trying out to break free. Sharon and Teddy is in the jungle searching for Anthony, and Teddy needs his inhaler but gets stabbed by Dylan as he doing it, and he gets his gun and threatens Sharon as Anthony shows up and says it's no one's fault but your own father, as Megan sneaks behind him and distracts him enough so Anthony and his mother take the gun, and Sharon knocks him out, but Anthony calms his mother down by saying he forgives her regardless of what she has done. And finally Sharon gives the chance to Teddy and accepts his ancient love.